Right, welcome back, and let me again welcome our guest, Dr. Cherif Amir, Professor of International Relations. Thank you so much for being with us. Let me start here with the visit of the Libyan Prime Minister to Egypt, because it's his first, and he chose Egypt to start a first foreign visit to. How did you read that, and what does that reflect?
Let's start by other countries, not by Libya in this case. The first visit for the transitional government in Sudan was to Cairo, and then there was peace in Sudan. When the Palestinians wanted to reconcile, they came to Cairo and met President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and they reconciled. North and South Sudan, the same thing, and now it's Libya. So it's very obvious. The road to peace and stability is Egypt, the palace of Tahadiyya, and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. It's very clear. It happened before. Peace in Sudan and reconciliation between the Palestinians, and now in Libya.
If we're speaking about reconciliation of the Palestinians were always here meeting. Ever since the start of the Palestinian cause, ever since the start of the Palestinian factions...
we never lose hope.
Yes. Ever since they started their disputes and all this, they were always meeting here in order to find consensus. Same to Sudan, same to what happened between Sudan and South Sudan when Egypt was trying to solve the matters. I mean, yes, indeed. But now we're speaking about Libya, we're speaking about the Libyan government, and we're speaking about a Libyan government that was preceded by one that had some relations with other foreign countries. So we're speaking now about a transitional government and a prime minister who chose Egypt to start his designate position with.
Well, the new head of the government, Mr. Abdelhamid Dbeibeh, I think that he understands very well now that Egypt's role cannot be avoided if ever he wants peace and stability in his country. Because Egypt worked since the first day, even there was, as you said, the government was working with some foreign forces. Egypt still negotiated with everyone, with all the factions in Libya, because the focus of the Egyptian diplomacy, and as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said it several times, is the peace for the Libyans, and they deserve to have a stable country. So I think that now the new Prime Minister there, Mr. Dbeibeh, understands very well that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is the man who can help him work to reconcile and heal the wounds inside the body of Libya. And I think that he came because he seeks advice from a man who knows very well the case of his country.
I just witnessed 2 or 3 meetings for the tribes, for the Libyan tribes in Egypt.
Of course, because Egypt is treating everyone there in Libya on the same level. We're not favoring any part against the other, as some media is trying to portray it hostile to Egypt. No, we are treating all the Libyans in the same way, and they are our brothers. And we are telling every leader that will be chosen by the people of Libya that he's welcomed in Cairo, that we will offer the recognition, we will offer our advice, our help, never trying to destabilize the country, never saying that we had... Look, for example, when the Libyan parliament asked or gave Egypt the right to intervene militarily at a certain time, we could have used this easily and intervene in the country's affairs. But we said, well, let's give a chance for the Libyans to work out and to try to find a solution. And that's why President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in this meeting was very clear that there is a process that just started with Mr. Dbeibeh, and let's push it forward, because there's still hope and peace that this country could get out of this dark tunnel with the help of diplomacy, with the help of Egypt and the advice of Egypt, the endorsement. We worked for the Libyans in the international arena. We have asked the French to accept to talk to General Marshal Khalifa Haftar. We have still asking the UN to lift the arms embargo. We are trying to seek every negotiations with every faction there, even though some of them were very hostile to Egypt and threatening our security. And this was very clear. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, when he said about the red line, he said it in a way that you have to differentiate between that we are love-seeking, we love peace, we are seeking for peace, but we are also defending our national security according to the international law. And this, some people said this was an imaginary line. Yes, it was an imaginary line, the red line, but it was respected because we were talking about the international law and our right to defend ourselves. So I think the message was clear. We are for diplomacy, reconciliation, and also our national security.
Exactly, that was what I was going to speak about, because the Libyan crisis has had its very special case, a very critical phase that Libya has passed before these elections, and such a phase increased the complexity of the situation. Rather, it also unlimited the crisis to the outer border of Libya. And that has already threatened the neighbors. I'm not speaking just about Egypt, but I'm speaking about the neighbors' borders. How do you view the complexity of the Libyan situation then, and how or what were the exact steps taken by Egypt, because they were in steps, in order to avert a collapse of the situation inside Libya and a failure state?
There were several, let's say, obstacles towards regaining stability in this country. One of them was the relations with the EU, because the EU suffered from the illegal immigration, especially Italy, and it was the hub of this illegal immigration was from Libya, so it was the organized crime, and then Daesh, who infiltrated this country, and Al-Qaeda, and then we had the Turkish intervention. So it was, let me say, a mess, a total mess. And the people of Libya were battling each other, mercenaries were present, military experts from outside this country came and started working there, foreign arms from several countries, like at the time of the topple of Gaddafi, the French at the time of Sarkozy dropped sophisticated weapons in the hands of the militants there, and it was a dangerous situation. So that's the complicity. Then we had some neighboring countries like Tunisia who was threatened. Algeria didn't want to intervene, and then Egypt was battling in Sinai terrorism, fighting terrorism in the inside, and in the same time we had to defend our western border. So the complicity was everywhere. I think that now this is being very, very restrained, because President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi worked or thought outside the box. He started dealing with countries outside of this chaos. I mean Greece, Cyprus, and then he started cutting all the liaison between the government of Libya and the Turks and the Qatar, and I mean the Turkish regime. And then when we started signing the accords in the Mediterranean with Greece, with Cyprus, making deals with Italy, making military and maneuvers with France in the Mediterranean, I think now that Egypt's role is very solid. And any government in Libya would come to rule this country would know that Egypt has secured a political, diplomatic front that could endorse him. So Mr. Dibeba, when he comes to Cairo, he knows that President Sisi ensures for him the recognition of Cyprus, of Greece, of Italy, of France, and the whole international community would be siding with him. I mean, Mr. Dibeba. So he knows that President Sisi has laid the foundation of stability for his country. And this was very, very smart. That's why he chose Egypt. Anyone in his place would have done the same thing, because he knows that now President Sisi is offering him a solution that no one can refuse. You will have a peace agreements and recognition from all these countries in the Mediterranean. And if you have trouble with Turkey, that will be solved with time, I hope.
Well, I think that Egypt has never been hostile towards anybody, not even Turkey, you know.
Not even Turkey, of course.
And we haven't moved 1 inch that can be taken as a hostile action towards anybody in the whole world, I mean. And I think that we've always put our good gestures towards everybody, and even gave our hands for peace. That was the constant diplomacy of Egypt. We are open to everybody as long as there is mutual respect and the respect of the both sides' interests.
We reach out for peace and dialogue with everyone.
We did, all the time. If we return back to the meeting of President Sisi and the Libyan Prime Minister to Egypt, and what do you think, from your point of view, were the main issues stopping the agenda of the talks?
The mercenaries and the foreign forces present there, because it's a trouble there in Libya. And I think one of the facts, or the first settlements in Libya, they said that we will work, the Libyans, they will work to tell all these forces to get out of the country. And I hope they will succeed in it. Because it's their own decision. They are sovereign enough to say to all these mercenaries, we don't need you, you have ruined what you have done, and leave the country immediately. So I think this was the first topic, how to deal with that. The second topic, of course, how to enforce the Libyan forces there to ensure the government, because what's the use of a government without any law enforcement there? So I think they seek Egypt's advice, logistic advice, how to ensure the security in Tripoli, in other parts, how to fight terrorism. We have an expertise in that. We know how to do it. We have an excellent system of intelligence service. We know all these files. And if they need military experts, of course, we are always there. We are the best in this region. Thank God, we are the best in the classified now. Our Navy is superb, our Army is sophisticated. We are a peace-guaranteeing force and stability. So I think that these are the discussions. They know that Egypt is the hub of all these stabilities.
Right. When we speak about, on the other side, the Libyan Prime Minister said that Libya is seeking a strategic partnership with Egypt, rather a full partnership with Egypt. So if we speak about a full partnership, then we're not just speaking about peace and security and the political phase, but we're also speaking about a full partnership in terms of economy, social one, and what? How do you view that?
The oil fields. We all know that Libya is a very rich country with the oil fields. Unfortunately, it was stolen by several forces since 2011. So I think that now we could invest in the restructure of this field, of this part of the Libyan economy. we could help them. Egypt now is working on several economic fields with our neighboring countries in the gas cooperation with Cyprus and Greece and other countries, and we are working also in the oil and electricity. So I think that now we could help our brothers in Libya to reopen these sites again, to export the oil again, and to try to work on agricultural affairs again. We can exchange all these expertise. We know that unfortunately there was several Egyptian workers who went to work in Libya, but it didn't go well. So I hope when stability and security will be established, maybe young Egyptians would go there and
But
start.
there are already many Egyptians there.
Yes, but
even though of the very unfortunate and dramatic incident that took place in
of course
in 2015 and
2015, yeah,
yes,
in February.
yes. I guess we're just remembering it as
Yes.
this is the month in
Yeah.
which it happened in, and it was so unfortunate. However, there was an Egyptian response, right?
Of course.
Remember?
Yeah.
Getting back to the fundamentals of what could be cooperation between Egypt and Libya at this upcoming stage. And let's get back first to the Egyptian fundamental policy, or the constant policy that Egypt has maintained during the previous period towards Libya and towards the crisis in Libya. And what were the constant and basics of this policy or this diplomatic stance?
Well, it was at the beginning defending our western borders, because there were some infiltrators who tried to infiltrate Libya, from Libya, our borders. So this was the first step. We ensured our security. And then the second step, that we started helping the recreation of a national Libyan army without interfering, but telling them that we could help you with expertise. And it happened. And then Marshal Khalifa Haftar became the head of this army. And it defended Libya against terrorism. So this was the first phase, fighting and reconstruction the military there.
Strengthening an institution that can fight,
of course,
the terrorism and the existence of Libya. Yes.
The second phase was the diplomatic phase. Libya was isolated because of the era of the late Gaddafi, and all the EU, for example, didn't wish to talk to Marshal Khalifa Haftar. And at that time, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Sameh Shoukry, made visits to Paris, to Berlin, and other capitals, and started telling them, well, this man is the only man that we can talk to now. We have to open the dialogue. And thanks to the Egyptian diplomacy, the Élysées accepted to talk with Marshal Khalifa Haftar, and he went to Paris, and he went to Italy. And Egypt endorsed him in all the meetings, whether in
all forums.
Yes, it was in Palermo. There was a meeting there, and Egypt was present. And we always defended the case of Egypt. So this was the second phase, diplomacy. The third phase that maybe we're living in it now is the reconciliation inside Libya. They have to have a government. So these were the three phases.
Solution. Or a political approach towards finding a real solution in Libya.
Look, it's very complicated in Libya, because I used to tell it to the French when I lived there with them. Libya is a tribal country. So
Yes,
you cannot say, let's make elections like we do in the Western democracies. No, you have to gather the heads of the tribes and start talking to them. We have to respect their nature, its culture. So it's tribal country. They have to meet and agree and then designate a person. So I think this is what we are living now. And this is what President Sisi gave an advice to the Western leaders. You have to respect the nature of every country in the Middle East.
Now, I recall the statement of the president when he said, "Look to us by our eyes, not yours."
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. Before we continue on with our discussion, let's have another report and resuming flights from Tripoli and Benghazi to Cairo. Let's watch the report and we'll come back for more discussion.
Airlines announced on Sunday the official agreement to resume operating Tripoli-Cairo, Tripoli-Benghazi and Cairo-Benghazi flights, following consultations and contacts with the Egyptian civil aviation authorities. The Libyan airline statement confirmed that the flight schedule will be officially announced in the next few days. The delegations of the House of Representatives and the Supreme Council in Libya recently agreed with Egyptian officials to continue consultations and expand talks to end the crisis in Libya. The two sides agreed to officially exchange visits and to work to overcome the obstacles facing the field of aviation, as well as establish a smooth flow of trade for the interests of both countries. It's worth mentioning that Alexandria's Burj Al Arab International Airport received on February 18th the first flight operated by Libyan Airlines after more than 1 year of hiatus due to a procedural issue. The plane coming from Benghazi's Benina Airport breaks the hiatus that started in November for flights operated by Libyan Airlines to Egypt. The resumption comes on the same day as Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received new Libyan Prime Minister Abdelhamid Dbeibeh in Cairo. The new Libyan Prime Minister expressed his honor to meet President al-Sisi, praising Egypt's sincere and effective efforts to resolve the Libyan crisis during the past period, and resulted in the convergence of views between conflicting Libyan parties and an end to the state of division.